for our people logging on. So
Hello.
thank you
Welcome
so
to Beyond
much.
the Steps.
All right.
All right.
I
So
think we're good now. We're
yes,
good.
we're good. We are totally on. We're here with Aisha Upchurch for today's conversation. We're checking in just a tad bit behind. But the important thing is that we are checking in today. So I see everybody logging on there on Facebook. Thank you so much. Welcome to Beyond the Steps. I don't even know what episode this is, but it doesn't matter because we are here. I can't even tell you the number right now, but I hope that y'all's week has not been like our week. But we're going to end this week and start the weekend on the highest note we have ever started a weekend ever.
Yes.
We're going totally up. So I am Melissa McDaniel with Turning Point Dance Creations. This is Bree Zabrowski with Apollo Performance. And this is the amazing and wonderful Aisha Upchurch appearing on Beyond the Steps for the second time. And we are, I know, 2 whole times. And we are talking about how do we teach hip hop from a historical perspective so that the cultural significance is not lost. This is such an important topic and a timely topic because I know we are deciding on our schedules for next year, what classes we're going to be putting on our schedules and offering. And the thing is that we have to make sure that we are honoring this art form. It's an amazing art form full of pioneers and icons who have really invested and poured into it. And it is so important that we acknowledge that. We acknowledge the history, the evolution, the cultural influence, pay homage to the pioneers, and recognize the technique and skill that's required to hone the craft of being a hip hop dancer. So unfortunately, those are things that are frequently missing. One, because the art form is young. Two, just because of the roots of the art form, people are not necessarily really checking for that at this point. So we have to change that, and that's what we are here to do. So we have Aisha here with us, and I want Bree to tell you a little bit about her before we jump into it. This conversation is going to be awesome.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. Thank you, Aisha, for being here. For those of you guys that missed the episode, we had her last time. I want to tell you a little bit about her. So she is the dancing diplomat, award-winning artist, passionate educator, and sought-after consultant who creates and facilitates and designs for radical change. She holds an MA in International Peace and Conflict Resolution from American University and an EDM from Harvard University. Aisha is a lecturer on education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where she has pioneered courses and initiatives to elevate hip hop and movement as necessary tools of transformative education. She is the founder and director of Hip Hop X, which is a lab project that explores the power of hip hop in education through intergenerational programming. And she also has a media and merchandise project, DOPE, which stands for Dismantling Oppression and Pushing Education. Aisha, thank you for being here again on this crazy Friday. Thank you for jumping in so quickly. We appreciate you being here. I know, obviously, you're passionate about elevating the art form of hip hop dance. And what is it about hip hop dance for you that makes it so transformative for those of us who learn to perform and learn it and teach it as an art form?
Great question. And thank you all for having me back. You know, I feel like you all are my two of the like coolest people that Zoom Universe has gifted me. Like, you know how you used to like bump into people and be like, I remember I met you. It's like I met you on that one Zoom. So first of all,
Now, yes, that's how we
all.
all talk. I met you on Zoom. Yes.
On Zoom, which is so indistinct now. But I appreciate the question. I appreciate this topic, and I really think it's quite simple. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, and the simple part of that also I think highlights the crazy thing that happens as we get older is like we learn how the world works, and how the world actually works is not very fun.
Right.
And then therefore having to navigate through it. I think one of the things that we sacrifice when we have to lean into navigational energy is you have to like let some fun go. It's like I just got to try to get through this. And hip hop is like fun, and I think it also the movement in it is like all the body parts are in play here. Like we're not gonna really censor. We're gonna celebrate that the anatomy of the human body can move these different ways, and it's playing with the music and the polyrhythms. And so I think the fun and the joy in hip hop dance, street dance, is what just makes a lot of people get excited, because it's like this little invitation to like, do you want to have fun? And fun is one of the core principles of hip hop culture. So in a really kind of drill down response, it's the joy of it.
So do you think that's the same thing that makes people underestimate hip hop as a genre and a style of dance, and why it's kind of undervalued in our studio culture?
Yeah, and I see Melissa over there head nodding too. Because you know, just because something is fun does not mean that it does not have a rhyme and a reason. And so I also think, because we then think that fun means structureless and just whatever all the time, and that is chaos. Chaos for me, I don't find fun. I'm a cyclical kind of person, you know, I'm into spirals, but even that spiral has a rhyme and a reason to it. It's not just like, and so I think people go, oh, that's fun. That's an invitation for me to release. Where there is release, it should be easy.
Yeah, I don't have to take this as seriously as my other style.
The actual steps, if that's not natural to you, then it might not come easy. So then people get confused, like, wait, what? This is hard. This is real dance. It has a real rhyme and a reason. So
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that you know, and I've heard people say it plenty of times. I want to take a hip hop class this week because I want to take something fun.
Yeah.
And it's like,
or conversely, you have the kids that train so hard in ballet and contemporary and lyrical that they don't want anything to do with it. And you're like, this has so much to offer you as well as those other styles. This is something else that you need to know and add to your repertoire. So I think it's two opposite sides of the coin there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think also I'm borrowing from a student that's in one of my a class and I have now, and in their reflection, they were playing around with like lines in the body and just like playing with the lines. And the student was like, you know, instead of I invited the lines to just live in me. And when I read that and saw their movement exploration, it also invited me to think about what's my own immediate connotation of linearity and lines. And I tend to think like polar opposite, it must a zero sum game, as opposed to going, lines don't have to mean that they are straight and direct and excluding things. Lines can help define parameters and borders and tell you where you get to play around in. And so I also think that it's not that I think, say, ballet is harder than popping, or that the fun you see in popping means that no part of ballet can be fun. I think that there's structure in all forms to let you know where to play it. And what I find joy and pleasure in the body doing when I'm locking, like that's some joy I get from locking. I find pleasure in like going to kind of a modern technique class and going through it's a different type of pleasure. So I think as we can also have ourselves completely interrogate that fun does not mean absent of structure, and structure doesn't always have to mean it's about taking all the joy out. And so that's why I think it also gets hard for studios that are like, then they want to use hip hop as a one trick pony. Can you come in and just like our kids want to have some fun and play around with that hippity hop? And it's like,
there's a little bit more to it than that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that the next question that I have is really endless. I think it's kind of like one of those spirals that we can just keep going and going and going. But I think it's also important to establish some baseline knowledge for our viewers who are out there who may not have a hip hop dance background. So what are some, as concise as you can be, because I know it can just grow and grow and grow. What are some elements of hip hop dance as a discipline? So, I mean, basically, what makes hip hop hip hop?
I mean, that's a
loaded question.
That's a thesis. That's a debate topic. I'm sure there's a couple of clubhouse rooms about it. I don't have an iPhone and I'm a proud Android, so I don't know what's going to happen in these clubhouses, but I imagine, it's a topic, and even in the like hip hop and street dance, and that's a conversation there. Like, what are we calling this? And who's calling it for what means? When are we using language like urban because we don't want to say hip hop, or we say urban because then we aren't like having to say like black dance. And so I think one of the core kind of tenets of hip hop movement is that it is the fine line, right? Freestyle and improvisation, engagement with those around you. It's part of the technique. Meaning it's great if you can learn choreography, but that is not the definition of hip hop dance, street dance, right? And I want to like really just leave for folks. There are amazing practitioners, scholars, artists out there who have resources on, and invite these conversations on, are we talking about hip hop dance, and is breaking hip hop, or is crump hip hop, and what do we mean by street dance? And I think we just have to also like go back another step and go, we're talking about movement that comes from the African diaspora, the whole evolution of movement. So we are talking about call and response as part of the technique. Like, if I do something, you should know how to respond. That's why that crowd engagement, like for folks who don't want to engage in like exploring freestyle, for me, I go, I don't know if you really get that the form grows because people are playing and inventing movement. It's not, its codification isn't fixed.
Right.
Like, I don't think there's any new jetés that are gonna get invented. But hip hop is like, I can tell you what I am, and then I'm gonna reinvent it in 2 days.
Right.
Do you think that hip hop, the term itself, hip hop, is an umbrella? It's a culture. It's a kind of embodies a lifestyle. But beyond that, there's different genres that come out of hip hop. So there's popping, there's locking, there's breaking, there's there's fusion, there's Afro fusion. Like there are all these subsegments of hip hop. Do you think hip hop is pretty much the main umbrella for anybody out there that doesn't know? Is that just a big broad term, and then there's all kinds of different subsegments that come off of that?
Again, ripe question.
Yeah.
Sometimes the charged question. I think if we're thinking about some of the first forms, so you do have what we call the social or the party dances. It's like the things you do, and then they get a name, and based on where you are in a region, you might have another one, but it's like the WAP, the Kango, the Prep, the Running Man. Now we got the Whoa, we have all these things. So you always have the social party dances as part of hip hop. So in a way, you can think of it as far as hip hop dance. I can certainly see how the umbrella or the tree kind of metaphor works. And then above that is like, but the universe of hip hop is about the culture. It is about, which can involve elements of spirituality, of identity development, of community, of how a lifestyle. And so, but I think with the dance form, there are different techniques or forms underneath the tree of hip hop.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that is because if you are out there and you are somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge about hip hop, we're not here to judge you. This is a resource to help all of us learn and grow. Again, Melissa and I are on this journey every single week with all of you out there. And, if this is meant to give you a visualization of, okay, this is, if you're a visual person, this is kind of how it breaks down. But by all means, there is absolutely more to it. And we're going to dive into as much as we can today. But if you're out there, this is a place to learn and hopefully establish some baseline foundation for you, so you can do some more work on your own.
That's so beautiful to say that. And I think with that also, for folks to realize that hip hop, also going to the history, is so much older than social media.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's relatively young when you do compare it to other genres of dance, i.e. tap or jazz or modern. But just to be clear, it's so funny, I heard somebody referring to those social dances that have existed in street dance culture as TikTok dances. And I want to go like, this is a facial tissue. It's not a Kleenex.
Right.
This is a facial tissue.
Yes.
That is perfect.
It's so heavy that look, even this brand is Puffs, but people would call this a Kleenex.
Kleenex,
So
right.
all that to say that this is not a TikTok dance. It's
Right.
that TikTok is such a dominant platform for a beautiful exchange and some problematic, but that people also understand if you're just getting onto this train, the metaphor I use for hip hop is a multi-car train.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you can get on it. Just know that there's probably some people on it in the cars before.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
some people are going to come on after you. And you know what you can do? You can get up and you can go meet.
I love that. And now it's so visual and I think it's so helpful. Yeah.
So for folks who are new, welcome. And know that like, hey, there's some cars in front. You can get up and through research and resources, you can go and explore what's been there before you got on.
Yeah. Make it important enough to want to do the research. Right.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think that this is a lot of people, like you said, you know, they kind of give it the moniker of a TikTok dance or an Instagram craze or whatever it is. But I think there's also a lot of people who consider hip hop to be a product of rap music. And
They associate the two. I would agree with that. People
oh,
do.
you know, hip hop dance came along because people started rapping. Okay, actually, no,
No.
not actually what happened.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about it? Like, can we just address that elephant in the room that, you know, Cardi B did not invent hip hop dance?
Yeah, I'm turning around because
Live.
I have a little bit of my library behind me with some resources. So they're like, yeah, it's okay, folks. Like, hip hop has a history. That's also why it's not just whatever you make up, because
Right.
it actually has a history, and we've just in the last few months lost some really like amazing
Yes.
legends and pioneers in the form. And a lot of hip hop history is oral and it's still being written and or recorded. And so like trying to get these stories down. And so it's okay if people have that kind of benign, like I thought that's the order that they came in, but hip hop is the root. There were 5 core elements, and those are MCing,
Mhm.
or what we would call rapping, DJing, breaking or the dance, and graffiti.
Mhm.
And then the 5th one is knowledge, which kind of permeates everything. And so the thing that's so intriguing about hip hop history, which like just fascinating and nerd out on, is that it's all live. It is what we enjoy now through streaming, through going, through downloading things, YouTube is amazing, because only 50 years ago, like, nah, this was all about a live experience.
You had to be there.
Yeah, you had to be there. So you have the DJ who has to immediately read the crowd to understand what vibe, what song they want. The MC is trying to hype people up, maybe with freestyle engagement, call and response, or then into like prepared lyrics and rapping. And then you have the dancers on the floor who are like, yo, waiting for that break or signaling to the DJ, we want another style. So this is all a very live experience. So no, rap didn't birth the dance.
Right.
They are all siblings.
Mm-hmm. In the same house.
Same house.
They went on different vacations, but they live in the same house.
In the same house, like most of the traditional kind of origin story of hip hop really pinpoints Bronx, the South Bronx, more specifically as the birthplace. 1520 Sedgwick Ave, August 11, 1973. All of these like dates and places that we know as like the first party. There were parties happening, but something happened at that one is kind of like, you know, just to say that there are multiple origins because folks had different proximity to what was happening and who told who, what got recorded where. But traditionally we point to the South Bronx, so we know that graffiti is actually traced its start to Philly and then made its way up to New York, where it really exploded. So the dance has always been there because people have always been dancing, and because we're talking about people from Black and brown cultures who have a tradition of moving all body parts when the music feels good, not just when somebody hit a beat.
Right.
You know, back in the day, songs had breaks where nobody was rapping or singing so people could dance.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I really want to lift up one thing that you said about, you know, it was live. And there was no social media, there was no email, there was, you know, I mean, we had video, but, you know, it was that big Betamax. big Betamax camcorder that we used to carry around, those types of things. So you had to go to other places to learn, and you had to go to other places to honor people, and you heard about people who had innovated and people who were pioneers, and you said, I have to go see this person and I have to go learn from them. Not just, well, I got my own thing and I'm gonna be doing it over here on this corner and I'm not going to see what such and such is doing. That is that type of synergy, and is how this grew into an actual art form.
Absolutely.
More so than any other
Yes.
style of dance.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's really hard. Like, I tried this as a teacher. I think that's why it's hard sometimes and I like watching the journey with my students, for them to realize the reason I'm having part of the class be about freestyling and you sessioning with yourself or with someone else is because that's actually more true to how this form grew versus like, let me go pay money in this very transactional experience.
Right.
In this clean, crisp, pristine studio and learn some moves. So I try to leverage, if that's the space that I'm in, I still try to like organize the class in a way to acknowledge like, I don't know what to tell you. We're going to have to work on musicality because, and you have to do that in community. It can't just be you in a corner. Right. So that's part of the technique that I think folks also, or the training, that I think folks also, it's hard for them to grasp.
Yeah, you answered my next question perfectly. So, we have some comments, and I see you in the comments, everybody on Facebook Live, because we're gonna put a pin in those until the third segment, because I think they're gonna fit in nicely to what we're talking about there. But it's important to emphasize that hip hop is a culture, and dance is one of the many things that were born out of that culture. How do we maintain the integrity of this art form while still making it consumable to students and families who may not have adequate exposure to the hip hop culture? I mean, you just said, in these pristine walls where we're learning moves, is it better to teach it in a studio environment than not have it at all? How do we preserve that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm trying to temper like my emotional response wants to go. If you have no means of doing it with acknowledging the history, you shouldn't do it.
Okay.
And I still think that's probably my actual response, because we can show where our values lie a lot with where we put our dollars, and how we build programming off of that. And where it may have been very difficult at one point to figure out, how do you get so-and-so to come on out to such a place to teach a class? I feel like what technology has done is made it easier, at least for us to find people, and to at least ask for different ways that we can bring in that kind of knowledge build. Because unlearning is really, really harder to do. And it's got a lot of guilt with it. And so I would rather, like, if folks don't have access to a person or some type of opportunity to send people out to like get some training or find a mentor, someone that you can ask to like support your program, I would encourage that first. Versus, because then for me, the other side of that's going to show that really where your values are around dollar signs. Because we know that most studios, listen, 20 years ago, you see a handful of studios having something called hip hop and street. Jazz, funk, and that's a very tandem conversation. And you start realizing that through the MTV, back when MTV played music videos on television, when it earned its name.
TRL,
Yes. Yo, MTV Raps. I'm dating myself, it's fine. But in those times where people are realizing, oh, this thing is happening, studios are going, hey, we can get some more money in here. And they usually do it through kids' classes. So this is what I am gonna say, with love, but with my firm head. Please do not use children's classes as the way to do throwaway instruction. Well, that person doesn't really know ballet, but we'll just kids, they don't really know hip hop, and we'll just have them with the kids. Because what happens if that person is good enough to teach a fun class, even though what they're teaching is wholly wrong, those kids are going to remember that. Because you remember what you care about, what there's joy attached to, and they're going to be learning severed history at the least, improper technique at the worst, right? Or some combination of that. And I go, instead of using the kids classes as a space, but that's where they make the money. I'm going, what can you do in your adult programming to start there, or do a teacher training to get your teachers educated? So I understand why people want to do it. And I've had this question asked to me when I'm in rural settings and somebody's like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't be teaching this. And I'm kind of like, because that learning becomes harder.
Yeah.
And guilt ridden.
To be clear, you're not saying don't teach young kids how to move in that way, but if you're going to call it hip hop and we're going to label it that term, we need to teach it correctly, like any other technique. And if you're not going to do that, and you're not going to teach it the way that it needs to be taught, referencing the rich history and the proper terminology and all of the things that go into it, and you're not going to start that foundation, maybe call it something else. Maybe we're calling it,
And I know that might be uneasy for folks to hear. And again, this is in love, but it's really, I mean, we have to, at some point, you got to call a spade a spade. And if it's not, if what you're teaching actually isn't the thing, then call it what it is.
It is, right.
Don't teach it, because I will say this. I feel like far few people would even entertain having someone teach ballet when they know for goodness sure that ain't ballet that's happening in that class.
Right.
Oh, heads would roll.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, if we want to be inclusive, have everybody at the table, then afford that same eye to all the dance forms.
So then this is going off in a whole nother direction, but it's worth noting, when you go to competitions and you go to conventions, that ever broad hip hop category,
cheerleading in it.
That you're teaching this in your studio, but it's not hip hop. But really, where do you put it then at competition? Because that's where that's where they have it to go, right? Or open. Maybe it's open.
Open.
I hate the open. I hate open.
Melissa's taking this question.
I know, but I don't, yes, I get what you're saying. It makes sense. But so that's systematically a problem, all around.
Thing, right? So like, as soon as you start going, just pull this one layer, or you got a loose thread and you're like, I could just, okay, this is unraveling. So here's the truth though. This is the part we don't like signing up for, right? It's like, it might mean repositioning, renaming, or rebuilding programming. And I think also there needs to be room at the table for these big conventions around, like, where's the accountability on your level for what you're calling a thing? Because I certainly, when Melissa was like cheerleading, I have gone to some hip hop dance competitions, and and I'm not positioning myself as an elder in the community, but it did more in line with me with cheerleading competition than, because it gets, so
you can see that.
I don't want people to feel bad. I'm just saying there are many levels to this. And if you are in a seat of influence, if you have a seat of design, meaning you get to name the classes, you get to name the programming, then instead of just accepting what we've been inherited, use your creative power to go, you know what? We're going to call this an intro to open styles class, or let's reapportion part of our budget to go this spring. Instead of putting a full slate of classes on a schedule, maybe we go explore what it's like to have a series of master classes for our teaching staff to train.
Or option C, do the work and teach a hip hop class, Option C is
right. And here's the thing with that, I think I also want to say this, right? And this is a little bit of a side, but it's on topic. Everybody right now, we're saying do the work. And the thing is, what the work is not monolithic. And my work looks different than both of your work, because contextually we're in different places. We have different seats of influence. You know what I mean? And so and how our own identities play into that. My own proximity and how I name my relationship with hip hop plays into that. So I also don't want people to feel like, well, somebody just told me to do the work and to just educate myself. I'm gonna go, okay, listen, we got different work to do, but it's nothing for me to say, look, I got 5 books, 5 DVDs for you to watch that would at the very least point you in the direction of somebody you can ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to also say that it might be the work looks different.
Right. I appreciate that. That makes sense. And, again, we're on this journey too. I have taught hip hop in years past, and I wish I knew and wish I was on the journey that I'm on now. I would go back and do a lot of things differently. I can't. All we can do is know that from this day forward, we have to, if we have the opportunity, it has to be done differently. And so
I started, it wasn't pretty at the beginning. I would erase a few years of my teaching as well, because I just did what other people did, but then I realized
you see what other people did.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so, having that level of consciousness as we have an opportunity every year to make changes and tweak what we're offering to our student base. And, knowing that summer schedules are coming up and fall schedules are coming up, this is the time that we can take responsibility, because we do know now. You're hearing us say this now. So don't ignore it. Don't bury the head. Do something to adjust, make an adjustment on your end, because it all starts with those little steps. So I think it's really important. We talk a lot about the direct connection with hip hop dance and African dance and culture. Can you talk a little bit, just as briefly as possible, about that connection and why it's important that teachers communicate that information when they're teaching, reserves part of that time in class to educate their students on the history?
Because teachers should be educating.
Yeah. That's brief. That was brief.
That was as brief.
Education does not mean just spitting out what somebody else told you. It should be about helping facilitate people encounter liberating truth, for them to tap into their own abilities to empower self through knowledge. And so history should not be treated as an aside. Understanding hip hop dance as I'm thinking about what Moncel Durden, I would direct people to his series Intangible Roots on IG, to understand that hip hop dance is another instantiation, or it's another manifestation of the rich lineage of Africanist movement, polyrhythms, percussive, grounded, in community, so that people don't think like, oh, this just fell out of the blue.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you can also not dismiss it as random and as not real dance. So teachers, your job is to educate, to facilitate the learning of full empowering knowledge. And that is why you tell the whole story. Doesn't mean you pull over for a lecture. Find ways to integrate it while you're teaching.
Yeah, I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was, but it doesn't have to be the whole class. Like take a few minutes in the beginning of class or at the end of class to explain, or as you're teaching a movement, where did that movement come from? And just weaving it in. It doesn't have to be this, massive, structured lecture every time,
Or to do that, you also have to know it.
Right.
That part.
Right.
And then also just think, again, like you said, some of this is also about pedagogy. At some point, people need to take a water break, depending on how long your class is. How can you allow them to hydrate but still be in the learning, and not treat water break as like, oh, let me social media,
right,
or totally be offline. So it's that. Or as you're drilling something, give them nuggets. Or actually go for the first 5 minutes of class. We're going to watch this clip so that will stay with you all as we're drilling this. So then it's about, as I say this to people, it's about how are you setting up your class? Because we can't change how long the class is. So then you have to go, how do I structure the time that I do have? And you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm totally about to get on my a big old platform right now, because this just annoys me to no end. So I have to weigh in on this. I judge around the country, and I so often see hip hop routines that lack technical content or technical elements. And immediately upon jumping on stage, they turn upstage and begin to twerk, and then they turn stage right and twerk, and then they turn to the front and twerk, and they turn, and then like, I did a hip hop dance. Right. And that's exactly what my eyes do. So, but I mean, in defense of all the choreographers who are out there, me being one of them, you have to go and learn what it is, the fundamentals of the art form. So I know I might be putting you on the spot, but where can people go to develop those skills as a teacher? Like, are there training programs? Are there hip hop schools? And how do you know that those are places where you're actually getting accurate information?
Because I think people want to offer it. People want to offer it. I don't know the motives for wanting to offer it, but people want to offer it. So the people that want to do it right, how do they may not have exposure. So how do they learn?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I don't know.
I was about to say something real, like, I'm gonna give you a real short answer again. I feel like if people are willing, and I'm one of them, to get on YouTube and teach myself how to change a flat tire, I have demonstrated that I know how to find out information.
It's there. It's just there waiting.
So I'm not being silly, but like, Google,
yeah.
YouTube, and don't trust just the first Wikipedia hit. Click some more links. And then I'm going to say even more practically, there are some organizations doing amazing festivals every year. I'm thinking of Ladies of Hip Hop Festival. I went to the Illadelphs Legends of Hip Hop Festival. What are some other ones? Now I just went blank. But I'm thinking about, if people are trying to figure out like, where do I go? I do in some ways believe that this COVID ed virtual learning world has made it much easier to find people and send them a message directly. Click on the send info contact. I do it all the time. There are lots of people for whom I'm like, well, all I see is their IG or their Twitter handle. And I try to strike up a conversation. When I was in DC for a long time, and I was starting to have this revelation, like, ooh, the classes that we're teaching here, like, I feel like we can go deeper on the technique side. And so I pitched to the studio a class, like, that somebody should be teaching their technique, and they're like, you should do it. It's like, I don't feel like that's me. but I didn't want there to be nothing at the studio, right? To your earlier point. So I had done Illadelphs. I had taken a couple of workshops with Rennie Harris, and I reached out to him. I was like, I know if you remember me, I've encouraged the studio I'm at, to do this. What are some resources that you would recommend that I can start like putting myself into to get my knowledge up, or like, who should I know? And he obliged and gave me some information, right? This was many, many, many moons ago. But at the core of it, I have not offered anybody to do something that you don't have the capacity to do. And that's to ask in some humility. And like, this person should respond, because they shouldn't have to, they don't have to, but that's at the core of it. There are festivals, there are people offering classes online. Also Camille A. Brown and Dancers, they're doing a whole series on social dance. Like that's part of the lineage that hip hop dance is a part of. So people can pull up to IG, people can pull up to Facebook Live,
But to be fair, I think that requires first for people to take hip hop seriously. And I think that goes back to what we touched on in the beginning, is I think there's this general thought process that it doesn't require as much effort as other genres and other styles might. And so I think, first we have to give it some credibility and the respect that it deserves. And then I think once people hold it in that esteem and with the respect that it deserves, then that prompts them to put in the effort, because we put effort into things that mean something to us, right? Right.
Yeah,
so
I thank you for that. Like, I do wear rose-colored glasses, and I do get, like, sometimes when the wool gets pulled over my eyes, I'm like, yo, because I do forget that, like, not everybody thinks to be considerate first. I'm not saying that I think they're trying to be underhanded.
No.
I love this thing so much that I want to honor it.
Yeah.
And the first thing is I want to like check my own relationship. And I want to get comfortable. Here's what I will say to practitioners, teachers out there. Like, get comfortable admitting to yourself what you know and what you don't know, but not with judgment and self-condemnation, with some grace and some generosity towards self.
Yeah.
So right now, every class I ever teach everywhere, there's always this preface. I know what I know, and I know that I don't know everything. So I'm going to try to make sure I can give you all what I have and make space for other folks to come in. Even in my courses at Harvard, there's a reason why guest lectures are very important to me as a teacher, part of my pedagogy, because I don't want to be like, I had this platform and I made it about what I know.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that's the antithesis of hip hop. Also, like hip hop, like who's in your crew? Like you got to be rolling with a crew. Like what elders, like who you know. So I just want to say to folks, like, if you are attracted to hip hop, which most people are, that's cool. That's okay. Then if you go, I want to make space for this at my school, at my center, whatever, that's also good. Then ask yourself, do I care about it enough to try to give it the strongest platform to stand on in my space? Which means it might not mean put 30 classes on at first because it's going to give you $30,000 or whatever it is. Maybe it starts with one that you can really manage reasonably and with respect and honor, because we can't run away from being consumers. That's just not real. How can we develop habits of being more responsible and more critical consumers? And not just taking everything at face value and figuring out how to practice honor in our consumption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you. We answered one of Casey's questions on Facebook Live about, having hip hop on the schedule. Is that an appropriate term, which we talked about? But her other question, and this could be a little controversial, is can a white teacher teach a hip hop class?
I hear it all the time. So it is controversial, but it's a needed question right now.
So the word focusing on,
what's that answer?
I'm focusing on the word can. And I'm going to get pedantic here or get into semantics. Can is and has the ability to, and ability meaning has the wherewithal, the training, has done some critical examination of their self and relationship to the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And yes. Should
yeah,
a white person teach hip hop who has not done any of that? No. And here's the kicker. Should any race of any person do that?
That was my next question.
That. The answer is no.
Yeah.
Right.
And that would extend to a Black person or any race. If you don't know the history and you don't understand what you're teaching, don't teach it.
Is an equal opportunity offender. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You're so right, and that I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that it's a stereotype. Oh, we have a Black teacher at the studio, so she's gonna teach hip hop. Okay, no.
Right.
It should not be the default that your Black teacher is gonna teach hip hop.
Because then that assumes all Black people inherently know hip hop, which is also not true. All Black people are not the same. One, all white folks are not the same. Two, all brown, all down the line. And everybody's relationship with understanding how to teach what they are preparing to teach under the hip hop dance umbrella is not the same. I'm not gonna pull up and be your breaking teacher. Why? Because I respect it and I'm not a breaker.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I'm Black. And because I can be honest, I would do a terrible job being your break teacher. And I would be unrightfully occupying the space of a seat of an instructor who could do a better job, who might be a different race than Black, but has done their work, has done their training. Mm-hmm. So I want people to also not like equate race with the past and race with knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have one that just left my head. For some reason. Oh, hiring. When you're looking to hire a hip hop teacher, what are some of the things that you should be asking? I guess one of them is, have you done your work? Where have you trained? What do you?
I mean, I think when people are applying for jobs, I think this still happens. You have to have references.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ask for references.
So I will say this. Here's what I will say on the flip side of that. When you're in the middle, I lived in for Keller, Texas for a while, and it's, 15, 20 minutes outside downtown Fort Worth. And, you as a studio in the middle of wherever, suburbia, you get what you get in terms of people applying to your studio. And I've been in the position where you try to reach out for the most qualified teachers and you want them to come. Sometimes they're just not there. What do you advise people to do? You can only, pick from the pool of candidates that turn in a resume, right? So what is your, your best advice to overcome that challenge for studio directors that really want to incorporate on the schedule, that may recognize, look, I'm not the one to teach this, but so-and-so that just turned in a resume might have way more knowledge about this than I do, but that so-and-so maybe isn't the right person. It's like, how do you overcome that? Is it better to not have it, not offer it?
Well, one, I've never owned a dance studio because I have way too much respect for dance studio owners and the amount that you have to take on. I was like, no. So first and foremost, the level of decision making and attending to different details and functions of the organization. I just want to say, boom, head wrap off to that. With that, so I'm not trying to be like avoiding direct answers, but I try to avoid giving answers like give me yes or give me no, because I'm interested in responses, and I'm interested in what happens when we think a little bit outside of the box. Why do you have to offer hip hop the same way you offer your other dance forms where you have qualified people? I immediately go, you're not in a position to do that yet. So what are the other things that you could do? And then that's not like I can't give you those answers because I don't know what people's circumstances are, but I would go, again, can you start with guest master classes?
Right. Maybe we don't put that on our schedule. Maybe we call that class something else, that intent that we have in our head, call it something else. And then we bring in a true hip hop master instructor, right?
Can you go, hey, we were willing to pay somebody, I don't know, make up a number, $5,000 over the course of the year to be a hip hop instructor. What if we took those $5,000? We have these two people who are almost ready, but not quite ready. How can we invest in them learning more so that they are more ready to teach the class? So I go, again, put on your designer head wraps, folks, and go, I don't have to accept the system as it works. People might not be ready for it, but if you're trying to do the work of, you cannot, who am I borrowing from? You can't you can't use master's tools to tear down master's house. So if we're trying to do the work of building in more equity, of practicing critical consumption and teaching of hip hop, you can't use the same tools that were used to keep it out.
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to be inventive, and that might also mean you're gonna have to be patient. And take advantage of a virtual ed. Gather your students in your safe space, pay for a virtual master to teach them. Take advantage of that now as you're creating the longer of reality or vision to reality.
Right.
Absolutely. And if there's any group of people that can get this done and figure out a way through it and around it, it is the studio owners of the world. They're amazing what they've been able to juggle and create and hold and withstand this, especially this past year. So you guys are the group to make it happen. And that's what we're challenging you to think about, going forward is how can we provide this education and this instruction appropriately to our students and in a way that best honors the history and the culture that it comes from, right? So
I definitely move on to the action item though, because
let's give homework.
I want to give homework. I do want to say real quick, because I asked the question about hiring, and I think that this needs to be lifted up and recognized that in your hiring, when you're doing this, and you're talking about who do I hire and who's the best person, you have to check your bias. Because the best person to teach hip hop may not be the person that you would normally hire. That person may have never taught a dance class in a classical setting ever in their life, but they are the best person to teach hip hop. So when you're looking around your town and you're like, I don't have any dance teachers that can teach dance. Is there somebody in your community that dances?
And that's that creative design hat. And what would it mean to have them in the room with somebody who can help them build their pedagogy? because they got the talent. They there's something natural that they can do, but they're not the traditional teacher.
Right.
Thank you. Creative, be creative. Like you said, studio owners, y'all already slaying the game. Because listen,
Yeah,
so,
for real.
They really are. So what's our action item? We like to give everybody homework as they move through the week. So what's the one thing that you want people to do? What can listeners do between now and next Friday to make progress in this area?
I would love for folks to watch, I would say there's a documentary called From Mambo to Hip Hop. I think helps give you history and also definitely helps you lift up the Latinx roots of hip hop culture. But that may also give people a good jumping off points to go, oh, this thing isn't Ransom. So I would say watch the documentary.
Where is that? Where is that documentary?
I want to say that I believe that you should pay for things. And I want to say that YouTube sometimes turns up, and what are you going to do?
Right. Okay. Yes.
Okay,
but you should search Netflix. Hulu. Yeah. Search those things. Right.
Yeah.
Got it. Check. Got it. So thank you. That was awesome. You can find it somewhere. But we do have steps that we actually want you to take as well. So you're going to find that documentary where you find it. And then we also have the steps module, which is offered by Apollo Performance. It's a totally free program. Free. Free, free, the best word in the English language. It is a totally free program, and there is a racism in dance module that is in there that specifically talks about teaching hip hop with people who actually know hip hop and having that as a step. And I'm super partial to that module because I'm the one who actually created it and did it.
Right.
Your roses.
It's the best module ever in the whole wide world. So please go take that. There's also courses that are offered by YPAD in different areas where you can definitely train yourself. Bree is popping into the chat where you can do the Apollo Performance Beyond the Steps modules, as well as YPAD. And Apollo has this amazing 25% off discount code for any of your YPAD courses, Apollo 25. You can see it in the chat, so you can get, it's not free, but it's less than what it would normally be, which is the next best phrase in the English language, less than what it would normally be.
Yeah, and all of this stuff it's professional development. It's things that we talk every week about, things that, there is no set regulatory governing body in the dance world. And, there's a lot of debate about if that needs to happen, if it doesn't need to happen. And I think everybody picks and chooses when they want that governing body to be involved. But at the end of the day, it's really on us right now to do the work and educate ourselves as much as possible, not only just in this topic, but in every topic, to create happy, healthy dance spaces for all of our dancers, no matter, their race, religion, ethnicity, etc. So all dancers deserve that. We hope this was helpful for you guys. We hope that this gave you kind of a launching pad to want to dig in and explore further where you sit with all of this and what you can do in your own teaching and educational environments to enrich and educate and learn and grow and make changes so we can all move forward together. The recording of this full episode and all of our episodes are available here on Facebook and also on you emailed us out,
in my bio at TPDC_on_IG. There's a link to all of
I'll get it right one time in my life. I swear it's not going to be now, but I'll get it right. If you register to join us on Zoom, you're going to get a recording of each and every episode that we do. We ask you to please share. We share these in all the dance teacher network groups and education groups. It's so important, the things we talk about every week. We are booking for experts and episodes for coming in the summer, late spring and summer. So if there's a topic you want to know more about, or if you believe you know an expert or are an expert in any particular field, please message us, info@apolloperformance.com. Thank you, Aisha, for being here and joining us. Your insight is so much appreciated, and we have so much respect for the work that you do and the way you uphold all of your values and educate. It's just very inspiring. And I learn so much from you every time you're here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Very
so
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. And join Melissa and me next week, Friday, February 19th. We're chatting with Dr. Tanya Berg and asking the question, do the risks of having cameras in your classroom outweigh the benefits? Big hot topic. There's a lot of discussion on cameras in the classroom, period. So join us next week. We're going to share some we're going to share some insight on that, and we want to hear from you. Until then, we hope you can continue your journey beyond the steps, and everybody have a great weekend. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye,
you.
Aisha. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.